we were originally going to move the minutes around, the meeting around a little bit to accommodate Kristen Heck, but we do not need to.
Mm-hmm.
So then let me look around. Is there anybody here from the public? Other than the folks. So I see, seeing nobody and hearing nobody from the public, then why don't we continue on through the agenda to the approval of the minutes for our December 15th, 2022 regular. So I had a motion to approve from Bob and a second from Charlie. Any discussion on the meeting minutes?
I looked through them and it just seemed like the same meeting that I was at.
Yeah, scary. We're all at the same meeting. I still see people rifling through the pages. Any comments then? Then hearing no discussion, then I will do a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstentions? Opposed? So the minutes are approved unanimously by those present. So now we can move, again, continue on through the agenda and go to the Board of Education update. And if Kristen times her tap dance right, she'll finish just when Jim Rupert shows up. And you're muted, Kristen.
Yep, sorry. Good evening, everybody.
Hey.
So as I shared with you in December, at the December meeting, I anticipated that we would be in a deficit with special education, which we are. So we are 41% expended compared to 40% last year. We have a $251,387 shortfall projected in special education based on current IEP needs and unanticipated outplacement tuition, services, and transportation costs. The total of that, which is $359,529, but that is offset by projected excess cost grant reimbursement that we currently project to be $108,142. Continuing along that line, we do have savings in salary and benefits of $212,000 due to new hire salary and insurance changes from life events, new hires electing lower coverage than maybe someone they replaced, and the fact that we are still not fully staffed. So having said all that, we are currently looking at an over an expenditure of $39,387.
What was it again, Kristen? I'm sorry.
$39,387.
So that's your net deficit.
Correct. Yeah. So again, it's a changing landscape. I don't think we're in a position right now where we need to ask for additional funds. We're going to continue to closely monitor this. Special ed can change on a dime, and that is entirely possible here. We may, in addition, have some additional savings in salaries and benefits. We've had some people who have been ill and who have used up sick time. So while we have a sub, the sub isn't the same, rate of pay as the person who we would have been paying if they had enough sick time. So we have still a lot of balls in the air, but this is the shape of the landscape right now.
So basically your recommendation is to monitor for now, is what
Correct.
I'm hearing. And just keep us appraised of what's going on.
Correct. But I would say, as we go into budget, the board is not going to be in a position to be able to give funds towards next year's budget. That doesn't mean to say that in the end, we still may be in the positive and have money to return, but there's still half a year of school left to go.
So then that's also so two caveats then. One is this isn't ready, the deficit isn't ready to take any action on, money transfers. And two, because of this happening now, in just about halfway point of the year, you're being cautious about committing to anything of returns of excess budget.
Correct. And there's, yes.
Which is what you and I have discussed. So for me, this isn't news. I just want to make sure I'm repeating it to make sure that the Board of Finance understands that and hears that from you now. So,
Any
Bob,
questions?
you have a question?
Yeah, Kristen, this has been a couple of very difficult years for people trying to gather in person and stuff like that, let alone the fact that it's been almost impossible to recruit new staff. How is the staff holding up in all this?
Our staff's awesome. They are doing an amazing job. We've hired a lot of great new staff. It's unfortunate that we're not still fully staffed, but we have a lot of great new staff and they're digging in, and we're back to a lot of our kind of normal routines of school where, we're having music concerts and, games and celebrations and pep rallies and, the assembly the day before winter break at center school. I haven't had that in a long time. So that's been great, right? To just get back to some of the routine of school for the kids and for the staff. Right. And the staff's done an amazing job in doing that.
And are people turning out for the girls' basketball games?
They're turning out. They sure are. We got a big game tomorrow night at Bolton High School if you're interested.
It's getting quite a bit of notoriety. It's great.
Yep. They're doing great. Any other questions for me?
Amanda's got a question for you.
I was just wondering, how many positions are still vacant?
I couldn't hear her.
That's Amanda.
How many positions are still vacant? Do you know?
At this point, I think we're sitting on 4.
Are they still special ed or other stuff?
Special ed and other.
Yeah.
Question: Does it tend to be more at the high school or the center school with the staffing issues?
To be honest with you, I feel like it keeps fluctuating. So for the first couple of months, it was at center school, and then we were at the high school, but that was due in part to people being out ill and not being able to return yet, right? And then being able to find subs, so certified in that area. So I know that's not a great answer, but it's a little bit of both.
I was just wondering if there was a trend, a general trend here.
Yeah, no, there's not.
I've got a quick question. So first off, Kristen, talking about getting back to normal, you look great, by the way, so it's good to see you healthy.
Thank you.
Real quick, as you're talking about the possibility of not being able to...
One quick thing, just to note that Jim Rupert just joined the meeting, just for our clerk to note.
As talking about giving funds back, and the possibility that there won't be any, does anybody know offhand what we had given back last year from the Board of Ed?
I can look that up, but I don't.
I didn't have it offhand either.
Jumping out at me either.
Close to 500,000.
Was it that much?
No, I don't recall it being that much.
It was 400 and something thousand. It hasn't been finalized. It's unaudited, but I can give you the unaudited number if you give me a second.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Just to prepare as we're going into next year about what we might not be getting back when we're planning. So.
Yeah, and I talked about this last year, right? And we had some, I think, robust discussions during our budget talks about, this has been a long-standing past practice, long before I ever arrived in Bolton, and I've been here now. This is going into my 11th year, and trying to stop that train once you're in the process of each year asking boards to give back money, in March in preparation for the next year's budget. So, I think I shared this, I know I did, shared this a few times last year that, you know, I was concerned that this was going to be the year where we were going to be in a place where we couldn't do that anymore.
Mhm.
So that's sort of like a precursor to the budget.
Yep. Because I know we did trim, you know, both Board of Education and Board of Selectmen budgets. And then we also did that with the understanding that inflation is still going to keep going while, you know, over the course of this, you know, budget year.
And there was a program cut from the
Yes,
budget.
there was.
Yeah.
You know, and it was my hope, I still don't know if I'm going to be in a position to do it or not, to be able to put that back into next year's budget. I haven't seen my numbers yet, so I don't know where I'm at. And I got, you know, coming down to crunch time here because I hope to be able to get it to my board by the end of next week.
You know, and that,
The language, foreign language slot?
Correct.
Now, what did we end up dropping? That was at the end of the effort on Chinese?
No, that was 5th and
else?
6th grade world language.
Okay. Which would have been, depending on the year, Spanish or?
No, they do. Well, in 5th grade, they're introduced to both Spanish and French.
Okay.
They were.
so
the-
Julie, you got that, look like you have that number for us.
So the unaudited number after what was given back for unexpended was 425,769 for the Board of Ed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill.
Thank you.
And again, I
You're
just
welcome.
want to point out to everybody that we were not fully staffed all last year. And that accounted for the largest portion of those monies.
Well, and you also received quite a bit of funding for COVID with the cafeteria and other areas that we're not getting this year.
100%.
Yeah.
Thank you for pointing that out. Yes.
Yeah, so again, I think this is a good prelude for also when we start talking with the Board of Selectmen about their, you know, budget that, you know, we have a similar discussion too about what you think it's going to look like too for the rest of the year for your budget.
The town's kind of in a tough spot because our give back depends on weather too.
Yeah.
Right.
Salt, sand, fuel, and those things.
Yeah, I'm not saying to
just
get
don't
into
know.
it now.
I understand.
Yeah, I'm just
I
saying that
agree.
it's just something for us to think about and then, you know, understand the caveats with the town because Kristen has given us her caveats with, you know, Board of Education. So I'm sure there's some different qualifications around the, you know, the Board of Selectmen's part of the budget as well.
You know,
Any-
so I'll offer this sort of as my kind of parting words here, unless there's other questions for me, but, you know, I know that we have an agreement, right? That if we're in the hole, we come for the ask. We're going to try to manage our world of hurt with, you know, what we have in terms of savings and salaries and benefits. I will let you know, though, we keep having things that break that we haven't budgeted for. We don't have a rainy day fund. We don't over budget. So, you know, I just want you to know we're going to try our best. That's what I got.
Well, we expect nothing else because that's what we've been getting for 11 years. Holy crap.
Do we need Kristen to weigh in on the schedule before she leaves, or is that good?
Well, that's a good point. Do you have anything to talk about with the budget calendar proposal for coming up, Kristen? That was just raised by Amanda.
That's a great question. I got to find it here in my,
Don't forget, Kristen, we can switch you around for your
Okay.
presentation if you need to.
okay, yep. That's in the materials that you sent on Tuesday, Jill, right?
Correct.
Okay, hang on. I just got to get to it, guys. Sorry.
Hey, Kristen, I just want to mention, and I know you started your comment about the, you know, the potential end game for budget and Board of Ed, and, you know, recognizing that, you know, there is this agreement on the table, but that's up to the Board of Education, as you know.
Right. So, yeah, I just want you, I mean, it's our hope to not have to do that. I guess that's my point. Yeah, so I'm looking at this now. It's our intention to be prepared and ready to go on the 16th of March. And I'm guessing that maybe my board doesn't need to be there on the 21st. Is that correct?
And that's where you have the meeting with the selectmen.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. And then the other dates seem to work. The only one that April 18th. Nope, yep, I'm good. I think it'll be fine. Thank you for asking, though. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thank Amanda.
Thanks, Amanda.
And then we can cover the rest of it, you know, at the appropriate part in the agenda. Anybody else have any other questions, concerns, comments for Kristen Heck before she needs to depart? I am looking about and not seeing any comments, so I would say you are free to go.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it. Good night.
Good night.
Kristen, good night.
You timed your tap dance perfectly for your arrival. That referring to Jim.
Well, thank you for indulging me in arriving a little bit late this evening.
I would have covered him.
I forgot to even tell Jill I was coming.
That's okay. I would have covered for you.
I know. So I think the first thing in our package with regard to the town is the revenue summary, and we start with the tax collector.
I just want to apologize to Ashley that we rushed through the revenue last time, and it wasn't fair to her to explain the tax revenue or the other revenues and how they work. And I apologize, Ashley, that, but and I know you're smart, but just so that you have an understanding of how this works, the revenue, the tax revenue, and do you want me to bring them up?
Yeah, well, if you could bring it up, Jill, it would be.
Thanks, Jill. No concerns, but thank you.
I mean, I can bring it up if you want.
Yeah, if you could bring up the documents as we're talking, because they're not in the same order here, and then they're also landscape pages, and they're at an angle.
Okay. All right.
When I go to the,
I'll get them, and then. Okay. Give me 1 second.
and that way, at least they're also shared for anybody who is out there listening in.
Okay. Let me just get to the correct. Can we see that?
It's starting. There we go.
So the current tax revenue, which is at 98% of collection, that's what we budget for, is 98%. So we're at 101.25% of 98% for our current taxes, 94.3% on our motor vehicle as supplemental, are just starting to come in. So our 1.67%. Prior period is 106.81%, and interest is at 92.17%. So we're doing pretty good right now. We have of this, I think it's like $15,000 that will be going back, and I believe that's current period taxes, because we had an overpayment, a very large overpayment of taxes. So that it'll be realized in January. The checks went back in January to the individual. So, but we're still on a very good schedule of collecting above and beyond what was budgeted for, including the supplemental. So, does anybody have any questions?
Nope, it just looks like you're trending positively with the tax collections, which is a good thing.
It's usually not an area of significant concern.
Yep.
Charlie?
Yeah, I have a question on why not? Supplemental. I think we had budgeted for 175. Do we have the actual supplemental revenue total?
I did share that, but let me look. If I go and look, then I don't know if you'll still see what's on the screen. If I go and look, I don't remember what it was. Jim, do you? Yeah, I don't remember what it is higher than what we currently had in there.
Right. That was the point that I was going to make.
Right. Yes, it is higher. We did budget lower.
We used last year's.
Yeah.
It was a conservative one.
Yes, it was. And I think the point to make is that we will be getting, as far as the board is concerned, a little bit of additional revenue because of the fact that the numbers are higher, because used car values were up supposedly. And in addition, I'd also like to mention the negative being that while we're showing refunds of a certain dollar amount, usually what happens is when the bills are going to be payable, that's when the tax collector starts finding out a lot of changes that need to be occurred. So I would expect the refund numbers to increase as well. So they should more than offset each other, hopefully. Not in a negative, but in a positive manner. So, but just to give us an idea, that 101 compared to the 99.95 is it's a good number put up by the tax collector, and I think showing pretty good status of the collection. So
I want to know who overpays their taxes by 15.
No, you can't know.
I think it was me, and I'm anticipating the check.
You can't know, but I'm like,
That is a big chunk of change.
Yes. It happens. But just to know, and Charlie knows this too, that motor vehicles, although we do a really good collection of it, it is lower than property tax and supplemental as well. The people wait until they have to register their car, and then we get, and obviously not everybody, but there is a lag sometimes in the collection of motor vehicles.
But it's almost self-regulating because of the fact that they have to pay it before they can, renew their registration.
Correct. Right. Okay. And then the other revenues, we're pretty much on schedule with everything. The state checks come in on a regular, schedule, and they've all been coming in when they're supposed to. So we don't really see any bumps in the road at the current time. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
So you don't see any watch items on this page.
The only thing is that, and we talked about this, I believe before, was that we had talked about the NIPS, the money from the NIPS, that we can't, that's not general fund money. It's been put in a liability account and it has to be used for a certain purpose. So that being, I think we put in $10,000, and we put that in miscellaneous revenue, and we've by selling a vehicle, we're above and beyond that already. So that's good news. But going forward, we're just not going to be able to put that in our revenue.
I don't see any other questions on this one.
This is just
the ARPA money is not on here, right?
no, not general fund money. although these are Board of Education grants and the town aid roads, which is also, neither one of those are general fund money. And we, since this report, I believe in January, we did receive the second payment for town aid roads. No questions? Now Jim can give you the bad news. No, I'm just kidding.
So on the next page, the Board of Finance is over. It's just a, you know, it's just one of those things that we'll have to watch. We may have to put some money in there.
Definitely we'll need to put money in there for the clerk. The clerk will definitely run into a deficit there.
Right.
It's not particularly good form, however.
No. But we did talk about it, making sure we address this with the next year's budget.
You know, it's the same things that we discussed last month. We're keeping an eye on things. You know, we may have to move a little bit of money around, but you know, while we're watching these issues, there's nothing scary here. And I think that's the takeaway.
And the, I'm sure everybody recalls, the Board of Selectmen had actually had reduced, I believe, the amount of monies for highway and streets in recognition of the last several years of warmer winters.
Yep.
And looks like they hit it on the nose again here.
Not over yet.
Right, I know.
Thanks, you jinxed us, Bob.
Anybody.
Yeah,
Nothing but positive.
there were some significant reductions in that budget.
It was the right time.
Any questions?
I think we just have to wait and see. Just,
Yeah,
you
you know, the one that we're most concerned about is the police, and that just has to do with the change in personnel, really more than anything else. And you know, we may have to find some money in the administration budget to supplement that budget by the end of the year. Part of the problem is, you know, the state police are not very good about helping us budget appropriately.
Right.
I recently was talking, and that was the topic of the with most of the municipal leaders, the governor of the town, we have opportunity to ask questions, and the leaders of many of our towns ask them questions. The governor has promised to try to address that and try to get us good budget numbers while we're building our budgets, after we're building our budget, so that we actually have reasonable numbers that we can put into our budget for projecting the cost of our business. Probably won't happen this year. We'll be taking a stab at it. I can tell you that our staff has reached out to the State Police Bureau that gives us that information, but it is never timely. Any questions?
Maybe we should fine them for going too slow.
Have you got a speeding ticket recently, Bob?
No. Most of my family's out of town now.
I have a question.
Yes.
The Board of Education's indicated to us that they have employee issues and staffing issues. I'm wondering if you see anything in the near future that may be affecting the town side of it. What's the status? I know you're short some help.
Well, other than replacing me with one full-time person and 2 part-time people, in the other roles that I'm no longer fulfilling, we're pretty much up to staff. You know, so we're doing pretty well. The Board of Selectmen did at their meeting last week. They had a special meeting. No, it was this week, right? On Tuesday morning, Unfortunately, we did accept the resignation of one of our part-time secretaries over at the Senior and Social Services Center. And one of the things that the Senior and Social Services program has been lacking for some time is a program coordinator. So as much as it's sad to saw this as an opportunity to provide those kind of services for our seniors and others that attend programs at the Senior Center. So we can absorb the change. You know, it's a change of pay and it's some additional hours, and based on some staffing levels that they've had this year with regard to drivers and such, we can absorb that change in the existing budget. But that's really, you know, that's one area where we've made some changes in employment. The other area we made changes in employment, which we planned for, was we went from a part-time assessor to a full-time shared assessor, and we share 100% of her expenses, and that includes her payroll, her benefits, her Medicare and Social Security and all of that stuff, as well as her certifications and training. We share all of those expenses 100% with the town. So they pay 50% of the cost of that individual. And what we have really gained there is we've gained an assessor who is here when the rest of our staff is here. And we've gained an assessor who's here during public business hours. And so that was a fairly substantial staffing change this year. Do you have anything I'm missing? She's saying no. Charlie.
We share with whom?
Wellington. It's a true shared position.
Okay. Yeah, I noticed in the budget, in the expenses, that there hadn't been really anything in that assessor noted. I'm assuming that that's will start picking up now.
It will.
It has. It has.
Any thoughts, questions, concerns?
So if you had any watch items, then to call out on the expense side, similar to what Kristen had.
The biggest one would be state police.
Okay.
We think Jill's done some rough math, and we think we're underfunded in that account by about $50,000. But we do anticipate being able to find that in other places in the budget by being careful and conservative.
We had put in building and land use a full-time to replace Jim's position there, a full-time person, and we'd gone half the year without that person. So we certainly have some money to spare in that budget that'll help with the resident state troopers budget.
Yeah, to answer your question, it's the function of changing of personnel, right? So, less senior police officers are paid at a lower rate. They have a lower, maybe a different benefit package. And we, in the last year, have had some changes there. We're very pleased with the staff that we have. It's just a difference in what we budgeted for.
There was a change in free for 2 people, so.
Yeah.
And we were pleased to get a very experienced gentleman back.
Back, yes. Trooper Contenta had left us to work at the academy. And it didn't work out well for his family life. So he decided when the opportunity arose for him to come back to Bolton, he jumped in, and he was successful in his bid for the position. Even though he had been here before, it's a competitive process.
And Trooper Richmond had been asked to go work at the academy, and that's lower paid, and the academy came back.
And the other thing that happened is while we were in transition a couple times this year, because we had one of our troopers that was taken for take so we ended up with some fill-in officers that were at a much higher rate. We had a sergeant here for a month or more. So, you know, when those things happen, it changes the rate of pay and reimbursement from us.
We are dependent upon what the state police decide their actions are going to be, and that comes out of our budget. We don't really have much to say in it.
That's accurate.
Yeah.
And so I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking that they've just had a big hiring spree where they've got a lot of new state troopers coming on board. And it's not necessarily something that we might benefit from, but in fact, it could be something in the next few years where we might be able to get a lower paid person in if it happens. And it's a possibility. I don't see it necessarily happening, but it's a possibility. Even though all the state troopers are getting a substantial raise in salary, which we will be facing as part of
this, we'll be paying.
Except one of the things we do know is one of the things that we did get from the state police is the cost of their benefits from us is actually going to decrease next year. So maybe it'll offset that change.
And I also know they've been changing the amount that we had of the troopers' salary we paid for. Is it 100% now or lesser? Okay, because I know it's been gradually going up.
It never did. It never went up. It's been 85 for quite a few years now, but they did threaten.
Make it 100%, but there was so much pushback. You know, and part of the argument there is, you know, while they're in Bolton, if something happens next door, they're state troopers. They're not going to just stay in Bolton. If the resident trooper in Andover has got a real problem, they're hopping over to Andover. You know, that's the argument I think that town leaders put up when they said, well, we're going to start charging 100%. Well, then they lose that flexibility because towns aren't going to want them going over town lines to serve other communities.
And it's also responding to accidents on a state road, not a local road. So, you know, they're on call for anything that happens. Right. And they will do backup for somebody else. It means backup in an emergency situation. You know, we had the advantage of when the opening came up, and we heard that there was a possibility that the superintendent could come back. And there was a lot of interest from multiple parts of town to ask that he come back. Do that as we came and hit them right to the schools, right, you know, right to the neighborhoods, and he knew issues that were going on in town. It's very important. I think for a lot of people to see the same things from that. Well, I think opening up really well and stable for a while.
Yep.
We're
he tells us he intends to stay here for the next 7 years until he retires. And the other thing that we gained with Trooper Contenti coming back, he's actually trained as a bicycle patrol trooper. And we were having some issues on our trails this late summer. And so one of the things we did ask him to do at the end of last year was to do some bike patrols. So he would actually get together with another resident state trooper in the area, and they would do bike patrols, I think, out at Hebron, and then they would come over here and do some bike
So I've seen their cars parked down at Steele's Crossing and elsewhere, and sometimes they jog too on the trail.
Very, very well received. People stop.
Just a little bit of visibility out there, I think, makes a lot of difference. So, and I think the other thing that we had for you is we had one transfer since we met last of $25. We're doing the assessor accounts so that we could pay some dues and fees. I think that's it from our perspective.
So then we just have the takeaways. So your watch item is the state police, basically, and you're got a 50K deficit, it looks like, but you'll work on that. So it's nothing for us to worry about at the moment. Same as with Board of Education. Okay. Now we can keep going. So there's nothing under 4. Then I guess we can continue on to ongoing business on 5, which is consider and possibly act on the fiscal year 2024 budget calendar. We already started with the input from Kristen before she left on the 3/21 date where Board of Education was not needed to be present.
And I am still scheduled to be away for 4/25. Yeah, I will be away for a work commitment, probably will not be able to even get online.
Will be sad.
They said not to support. So like, that's the big day.
And if the board feels that they want to do a different day, we can certainly see if the town hall is available on another day, if that's what you'd like.
And 4/21, that's the public hearing. Public
hearing is the 25th.
I'm sorry, what?
The public hearing is the 25th. 4/21 is when I have to have everything into the town clerk.
Yeah, okay. I may have some others, Russ. I'll just give you a ring.
Yeah, and the only one that jump out for me is just, and we've talked about it before, is just when we get down to the budget referendum time, just with the conflicts with my schedule doing registrar voter work. So we'll just need to work around, meetings at that time.
Well, I will tell you, in the middle of April, I could become the grandfather of twin baby girls that are identical twins. So I might miss one or two of them.
We'll give you that pass.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You better bring them here.
Yeah, do the delivery right here. Yeah.
As an aside, I may miss some meetings in early April as well. I'm not sure what my wife has planned exactly, but we'll be celebrating our 50th anniversary.
Hey, congratulations.
That's awesome.
I won't be here for the 16th, but I'll watch the recording. March 16th.
My girlfriend and I are thinking of going to Puerto Rico, so we might go and wave and say hi to Alex down there. But shouldn't affect any meetings. We're planning to go either later sometime the last week or so of this month or early in February, so it won't impact anything, but I'll see if we can say hi to Alex.
And I'll be doing the February meeting from remote.
Might be too.
Very remote. Very remote.
Very remote.
Where this time? Are you going to the same place?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
You going back to the same place, Bob?
Oh yeah. It's a good place.
You looked happy there.
Where is this place?
Antigua.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Just bring your laptop to the beach. Make us feel bad.
It'll be dark, so I'll be home.
I'll be on stage.
Nice.
So if everyone's okay with the schedule that we have so far up through the adoption of the budget, I can finalize it and get it into the town clerk and to Jim's staff to put it on the website.
I'm not hearing anything that says that the schedule doesn't work. There's just a couple of us who will be out here and there, which is kind of par for the course.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have a quorum, that's important.
Yeah.
We'll have a quorum, like Charlie said.
Good.
And then the only thing, as I said, later on, when we start figuring out the timing of the referenda, we can figure out how that, when our meetings work with that to avoid conflict with me.
Referendum.
There's only one.
Yeah.
Only gonna be one this year.
Okay.
Do we need, I mean, I'm just trying to think of what happened last year, right? And we were having referendum, what? July?
Nope.
No?
End of June.
July?
No, we went into July.
we
I
have
thought.
July.
I thought we went
I think it
into,
was the 13th of July.
yeah, 13th of July.
Right, okay.
It was hot.
That's right. We did go into one.
I'm seeing like 3 potential meetings in between the public hearing and the first referendum. and I'm brand new to this, so I'm just asking questions. Like, is it necessary to have those 3 meetings, or can we bump up the referendum a little earlier? Start earlier and get it. I mean, because, you know, we ran into people on vacation and struggling to get a turnout. I mean, well, that was
We always
struggle
to get a
Part of the
turnout.
problem is if we move it too much earlier, we run into April vacation.
Oh, well, I wouldn't want to do it. No, I just meant a little earlier in May as opposed to.
Well, it all depends on, the budgets have to be finalized by the Board of Finance by the 10th. And it all depends on when the Board of Selectmen choose the date for the referendum.
Oh, they choose, okay, they choose.
Yes, they do, yes. And they also have to have a town meeting in that month also, so it's a very busy month, so it's tough to move it up. It really is a very busy month.
We don't sleep in May.
No, well, we don't sleep from March to May.
It's a big question, though.
Yeah.
Well, if there's no give back this year, then maybe it'll pass on the first try, because that's been the complaint. That the budgets are not conservative, or that's for their give back, so. Fingers crossed.
We can talk about that a little bit more when we get to like the other part of the budget, like how do we communicate?
Well, I think Jill needs you guys to act on the calendar.
Yeah, yes.
So you need a vote.
Motion to approve.
I'll second.
So we had a motion to approve is from Bob, and then Amanda seconded it. Any discussion? And looking around and seeing none and hearing none, then I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstention? So it passes unanimously by those present. And then this is where we get to watch Kristen and Jill duke it out for who's going to do the Kappa update under new business.
No, now Jim's here too, so he can.
Oh God, there's going to be a 3-way brawl.
No brawl, no brawl.
Can you bring that up, Jill?
It should be up now, no?
No, we're still showing the budget.
Huh. Okay, hold on. Wait a minute. You're seeing the budget calendar?
Yep.
Oh.
You may
okay.
have to stop sharing completely.
Yep, I will do that.
Because sometimes it just freezes.
Now?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you zoom in a little?
Okay, now you're asking for too much. Unfortunately, I didn't have copies made.
If you want to go down to the lower right-hand corner of the screen.
Yep.
There you go.
Actually, yeah.
Better? Can you see it now?
If you could click it one more time was the comment I heard.
Okay. I can't. Everybody, the way I see it, everybody gets in the way of one side, so I'm not sure. Do you see the whole?
Yeah.
Thing now? Okay. All right. Perfect.
There it is.
Okay, Kristen, you're on.
All right. So I will give just a very high level of what occurred. And when I start off, I'd like to just first off mention is that it is mandatory that we fulfill certain needs as far as the amount that we do actually spend in the Kappa budget. It is, correct me, is it a mill or a mill and a half?
1 to 4 mills.
1 to 4 mil. So we did not go up to 4 mils. That's the news. But last year we got it down to just over 1 mil. I mean, we were in danger of being too low. The reason we did that, and we punted a lot of things over because we knew it was going to be a tough year. So we kind of crossed our fingers and moved things out. Thought this year was going to be better. We know the answer to that. So this year it is higher. It's not quite 2 mils, but the final number is 717,380. All right. So we had a target. We're about 250,000 over that target. But we looked pretty carefully over this. None of us were really happy with the number. However, really when we looked everything over, we felt like this was pretty sound. And if you look over the actual items, I'm not going to get lost in the weeds and going over line by line. But this is what is being sent on. This is the first stage. It's going to get sent on to the Board of Selectmen. And then after it passes there, if there are any adjustments, then it will get sent over to us. I will point out something that I do think is important because there was an additional line item that was added. And this is important because when we were going over the line items last night, we cut out close to 100,000. We ended up putting back in 100,000. This is the reason why. That line item is under grant matches, and that's line 31. And the reason being is that the game of grants has changed. They want these towns to have a little skin in the game and being able to put down some matches. Jim made, I think we all agree, a pretty sound, thoughtful, logical recommendation of making sure that we have money that we set aside for these matches so that when they do come up, we can take advantage of it. So that I look at as a return on investment. Okay, so that should serve us well. We felt like it was reasonable and we will use those funds. So if anybody asks, I think we all need to be very comfortable and well-versed as to why there is that additional line item added.
Scroll down, Jill, we can only see through row 25. Thank you.
You can see it now?
Yep.
Okay, great.
Otherwise, just to point out a couple of other things for the Board of Education, there was, if you look at the line item of number 14, that's a big amount, but it was for the garage, and that will be done. It will be paid for. We had, let's see, the skid steer, which is line, where is it? Line 18 for the town. That additional 25, that's another item where it was split and it will be paid for. So we're chipping away at some of these. But we had some mandatory bigger ticket items, but they're going to be at least wiped out and will be paid up. Going into the future, we tried to break down some of the costs and starting to pay or set aside money and do like a little at a time. If you look at line, what is it, 16, that was originally a lump item. Where is that? That was the car? Was it the car? Excuse me, that wasn't Herrick Park. I'm looking at.
We have quite a few.
Utility vehicle. The task utility vehicle for the firehouse, that's line 10. You know, and just to give you our thought process in the future, instead of paying one lump item, we're trying to start to do better about chipping away where we can and setting funds aside. So we broke that down to, 15, 15, 15, and 15. So we're not getting one big hit for some of these items where they can be broken down. They do have to be above $10,000 though, all of them.
So when you're breaking it down like this, what does that effectively do with the purchase of this vehicle?
So we looked at this vehicle in particular and looked at the wear on it and what its current condition is. I had a conversation with the fire chief about that particular vehicle, and he felt that we could put it off. And so instead of the conversation that we had at Kappa Committee is we could wait and put the whole 60,000 in 5 years from now, or we can start to fund it a little bit at a time.
Okay.
And it's not such a hard hit, and I think gives us the ability to spread our monies across the entire capital budget, and probably are more effective at getting more done by doing that.
So then effectively what you're doing is setting this money aside. It sits there for 4, some of it will be there 4 years, some for 3, some for 2, and then you buy the truck. Okay, well, that's what I wanted to understand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
and how long is the rollover allowed? do we have any limits to it? Like this is 4 years. If it goes beyond 4, is there a problem? 5, 10, whatever? Or
Not in the capital reserve fund.
okay.
Capital reserve can go on until the project's complete. Capital projects can become stale, but not capital reserve. It will roll until you complete the project. So if you notice in past years, we've always paid for our reval. We decided to do the same thing. We put a little bit in money in because it's over $50,000 for a reval. So we decided a couple of years ago to start putting money aside, and we've got money for the upcoming reval, and then we're starting to put aside money for the next one instead of getting that one big hit in 1 year.
Yeah.
Worth noting that other towns have been having this kind of process for years, and this is something that this town is relatively new to, but it's something that's logically and best benefits the town to do it. And an example might be with and I'm going to go back to the grants.
Mm-hmm.
There are grants out there that we can't even apply to because we don't have funding available. My understanding is that even the town has in the past applied for the grants, but because there was stuff that isn't in a particular program or whatever, it wasn't accepted or couldn't be utilized. So we're costing ourselves money by not doing this kind of process. And I also will point out that years ago the town thought that they couldn't do that. Do it over a 5-year period or 10-year period or whatever it might be, but it's now approved, as I understand it, an accounting practice that the towns can use to try to keep their budgets in balance and keep them reasonable and cost effective. I'm excited about this.
It also helps eliminate peaks and valleys, right?
Yeah.
You know, if you have a set of knowledge, and I think it's going to take a little while for this to level out. This is sort of heading that direction. It's the same conversation that the Board of Selectmen has had with the fire department with regard to SCBA bottles. And, let's not replace SCBA bottles in 1 year. Let's buy half a dozen every year so that we eliminate those peaks and valleys and we're not having everything go out of services.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that the cabinet committee did purposely is it says grant match, doesn't say grant match for any particular grant. And that was purposeful and by design. And I think Bob has a question.
I do. What is a firehouse utility tank vehicle?
Task vehicle.
It's a task. Okay.
It's an all-terrain small vehicle. It's used in search and rescue. It's used up on Case Mountain when somebody gets hurt. We use it at the farm day event if we have an event over here. So it's like you or I might buy for recreational purposes to ride on muddy trails. But in this particular case, it's outfitted to seat firefighters and emergency services personnel. And it's outfitted with a Stokes basket, which is basically a rough terrain stretcher.
Now that we have trails that are being so heavily used.
Any remote need, I think, is how they like to word it.
Yeah. We've used it during power outages to get to people. When we've had roads closed, those will go places that you can't get a vehicle.
I have a question. I agree with this rationale and this style of budgeting for it. But does it, in the short term, handicap anything? Does it take away money now that we had planned for?
No, we were,
shifting.
And I think Kristen really hit it on the head. We were really cognizant about measuring wants against needs, right? And what you see in the budget is what we were, both the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen were able to make good arguments for with the entire group that were included as needs in the budget. The school pushed out the purchase of a truck. You know, we pushed out the purchase of one vehicle.
So things were foregone to absorb this different style.
But it's also done in a well thought out manner. For instance, one of the things we did, right? The school had a vehicle that was in need of serious repair. The town bought a new vehicle this year. And the mechanic called me up and said, "Hey, Jim, you know, the vehicle you guys are about to sell is in better shape than the one that I have here in front of me to fix for the school." We swapped. We gave them the better vehicle, which means that they're now able to push off because their vehicles see a lot less use than the town vehicles. So the school was able to say, well, this is going to buy us a year. So those are the kinds of things that, you know, we're doing behind the scenes that are not necessarily seen all the time to try to be able to make measurable differences in how we spend the town's money.
But the shared services model.
And if I may add, I do think as far when we're getting closer to the budget, and we've talked more about the communication, I think this piece is going to be important because we do get people that pick over everything, as they should. Yeah. I'm glad that they do. But they are going to take a look at last year compared to this year. And then say, well, wait a second, is there an additional line item of 100,000? We need to make sure everybody's comfortable as to the reason why, because I think it's actually a win for us. And it's going to allow us to not miss those opportunities for other grants that come around.
Right. In the example that I used and I shared with the Catholic community was the Board of Selectmen have authorized me to apply for a grant for the Lyman Road Bridge. It's an $850,000 project with a 20% cost share. 20% of $850,000 is a lot less money than 50%, which is what the federal and local bridge program will pay. And so that's why it's important that we have matching funds set aside to be able to apply for these grants and take advantage of them.
So it sounds like when we do get around to talking to the public, the two key factors on this is one, it reduces the peaks and valleys that we've been experiencing with the funding and it sets us up to be ready to take advantage of grants because we will have money in hand that we wouldn't if we just waited and did this all in one lump sum.
And it will stay there if we do not use it. It's not part of slush fund. It's not something that's going to be popped around. It's in that for a quick reason, and we move on to the next.
So Jim, just let's take it a step forward because this money sits there. I presume it's an interest-bearing account.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Jill, we lost her. I guess that she knew what was coming, scared her.
It's part of the whole pot of money that we have.
Correct.
It doesn't sit in a particular account.
No, I just meant it's part of the money that we have in reserve that's managed, and it's just we just track that there's
that total money that we need in order to even be able to be eligible to collect interest.
Okay.
And then once we get over that amount, the rest of it, with some exception, is interest.
So when we get over that amount, I think it was 7 million or whatever Jill told us, then we get interest on this. Where does that interest go?
You recognize it in your. Say sorry, she lost power.
Oh,
just talking about it.
It gets realized as a revenue.
Okay.
And it goes into the general fund.
All right.
There's a line item, I think, in this that they show us the interest we get, and it's going to be part of that.
So there's a benefit for this too, in that point, because it just leaves it where it's going to be earning interest until we actually need to spend it. So I'm just trying to think of what are the benefits for doing this, because like you said, people are going to look at this and they're going to say, oh, this is different. What's going on here? And then, so we add that into the 4 things we have now, where this money gets rolled over. We have it, helps generate interest, which comes in as revenue in our general fund, and eliminates the peaks and valleys, sets us up to take advantage of grants. I just want to understand what the elevator speech is, and just make sure everybody understands that, so that if we do get asked or you're out wandering about and you want to go and try to sell the budget to folks and explain it, then this is one part of it that we've got something we can all say the same.
In other places.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the other thing to think about, right, is we've all seen the ads on television or heard it on the radio or read it in the newspaper that the federal government is giving the state of Connecticut billions of dollars of infrastructure money over the next 5 years. This puts us in a position to be able to take care of that and gain opportunities to apply for the grants so that we're not fixing infrastructure all the local dollars, as much. There's obviously some local dollars that are being invested, but while these grant funds are flying around, we want to be able to take advantage of them and benefit the community to the best extent that we can. And that's really one of the reasons that we push pretty hard to try to get this as part of the capital.
Yeah.
Amanda?
The modular unit, have we ordered that? Is that a no?
No, we're still experiencing difficulties. We met with Commissioner Bolton and his team recently, and they gave us a contact. I've emailed the contact, and I am waiting for a response back. That contact is the person who's in charge of procurement for the state of Canada. We're going to be in a position here pretty quick where we're just going to have to go out to bid for it. Our goal was to be able to purchase it off of a state bid list or from one of our buying consortiums. We've had issues with the buying consortium, although it's where we got our original pricing from. We've not been able in our searches to be able to find it on the state bid list, which is why we reached out to the procurement officer, because the state is using these things all over the place. So it's really just a matter of us figuring out who they're using and how they went out to bid for it, so that we're not in violation of our purchasing policies or town ordinance with regard to buying.
And we also are in line with situations like Florida, that when the heat storm swept all the materials and the temporary buildings that were in the pipeline, and it's not like they're done and dusted. Went down, and I'm sure what's going on in California right now, there's going to be a big surge going. Here's cross the jump in before while there is market.
We're working on it. It's one of our highest priorities.
Is that Devin Marquez?
No, I can't remember the name that I sent the email to. Truthfully.
If you think about it, and you find it, let me know.
Yeah, I can send you an email. I'm just going to tell Jill she doesn't need to try to call her.
And do we know? I don't know, because this isn't, I guess, relevant for capital budget, but I was just wondering if we have any ideas what we're using the ARPA money for yet.
That wasn't part of our discussion.
I can tell you that the recommendation I will be making at February Board of Selectmen's meeting to the Board of Selectmen is that they act to allow us to use those funds to make the Notch Road Municipal Center come down.
Because they're loosening that up finally.
So here's one of the reasons that hasn't been a really serious discussion as of yet.
Okay.
Because if you look at the final rule document regarding the ARPA funds, it says it can only be used for demolition in cases of issues with public health or safety. Okay, so the question, and this was one of the reasons that Pam got Commissioner Bolton to come out and visit us, because it helped us gain clarity on what that meant, right? Because one of our questions was, well, who do we go to get that ruling? Because we think we can make an argument that it's a health and safety risk. And he made it very clear to us that we make that decision. That's a decision that the Board of Selectmen makes. And his suggestion was that when the Board of Selectmen act on it, assuming that they do sometime in the near future, that part of the motion that is made identifies why they believe it's a health and safety risk. And so, you know, Jill and I will work together to craft a draft motion for the Board of Selectmen to make, should they choose to use those funds in that way, so that that is clearly identified in the motion, so that if and when those funds are ever audited, we have the ability to show that we did it in conjunction with a rule in the final rule document that makes sense. And, you know, it doesn't make sense to me, and probably not to the Board of Selectmen, when we have this money sitting there that we can use for this purpose, that we borrow money to tear down a building.
And we didn't want to bond it.
Right.
No, because that thing.
And it'll cover it.
We think it's just about the right amount of money based on
Yeah,
the
maybe a little
most
extra
recent estimate that we got for demolition.
That place is a health hazard.
It is.
And
Yeah.
it's getting ready to fall down, which is a danger. So it's not a good thing sitting there.
So back to the capital budget, one other point I would make, just as far as also for communication, is that if it needs to be between 1 and 4 mills, yes, we are over 1 mill. Yes, it is more than what we did last year. However, it's nowhere near 4 mills.
Right.
So this is we felt pretty solid in that these were good choices as far as what we made for this budget.
Yeah.
And we'll see what.
And the benefits justify this.
Yeah.
And it's a long-term investment of elimination of the heat.
Yeah.
Peaks and valleys.
Balances it out a little bit more.
And there's no need for a public hearing specific on the capital budget?
Don't we have a hearing on the budget, the CAPA?
I don't think for the cap, I think it just goes to the
specific.
committee, selectmen, then us, and then that's, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else, Jim?
No, I think that really covers it. Yeah, I will say, as we look at budgets, it's not going to be a fun year. The cost of goods and services is up across the board.
Yeah.
We had this discussion with the Board of Selectmen, the Highway Department, and the Buildings and Grounds Department, which are two of our biggest budgets, presented their budget to the Board of Selectmen recently. One of the things that we talked about was the cost of diesel, cost of gasoline, the cost of salt, the cost of pavement. The cost of those things is just astronomical compared to where we were 3 years ago. So it's going to be, we all have an all-around tough job this year. We try to put together a fiscally responsible.
You're just talking about pavement and stuff. That's all ties into the price of oil
Right.
too, along with the diesel, along with heating and everything.
But it's also part of the reason all of our other goods and services are up, because very, very few of our products don't travel by truck somewhere.
No, it's a really difficult, situation, especially if, the economy starts to do a downturn as well, because right now it's just been the stock market, but not the economy. So if the economy starts turning down, it's a really difficult place to be, because the town is hurting, or, people in town itself, individuals are hurting. And there are, those of us, myself included, who are on lower incomes than we used to be since, we've retired. And so it's a really tough balancing act to balance all the needs of the different groups in the town, because you have young people, you have older people, you have everybody in between. And it's difficult. So I just don't want to say that it's an easy thing to say, yeah, we just cut the budget, because that might not be the prudent thing to do, even when people ask, out there. So, and then by the same token, maybe we do need to cut it. I don't know the answer. I'm just saying it's stuff for us to keep in mind, and it's also then sort of ties in with what I wanted to just at least start the conversation on. How do we communicate this? So are we also with the capital budget? I don't want to go and segue, because we've already kind of segued into it with communicating the capital budget and key talking points. So that's what I would, just ask the board for ideas on communicating. We don't need to do it tonight. It's already getting, kind of late. But I would like to think of different ways that we can get the message out. And not only get the message out, but get people to come and vote earlier than they usually do. Because a lot of them think they know what the drill is, which is you wait for the 500 people who always come out to say no, to get tired of saying no, or we get the budget low enough to satisfy them. And then, or more people come out to vote than the people who are saying no. And I'm not begrudging the people who say no, saying no. It's just, it's their right. They are, people in town, they have an interest. I just get concerned that that's a relatively small number. And I would feel more comfortable that I'm understanding the will of the town if like 3,000 people came out, 2,000 people came out and said no, as opposed to delegating this to other people. And we have to assume that it's the will of those who don't, vote, on the budget. So again, I just want to make that clear. I'm not saying, I'm not speaking against those people who vote no. I'm just saying, how do we get more people, engaged? I don't know if it's possible, but it's just, that's what I'm just throwing out as an idea.
So can I make a suggestion or throw something out that might take some time to figure out?
That's why I wanted to start now with these conversations.
So I was wondering if for the various meetings, TBD, if we can live stream on Facebook or Instagram. I know they're available on like Zoom and stuff, but you still have to call, you have to get the link, you have to be and calling on the phone is different. And so I do think that a lot of people tap into
Zoom lets you live stream to Facebook and to YouTube.
We just have to figure out how that works. Like, I don't think there's anything preventing us from doing it except the knowledge of how to do it. And so I would strongly recommend that our finance meetings are live streamed on our social media platforms.
So we do have a Facebook page, which I believe it's judicious to use that over jumping into the ones that are privately housed. And if they wish to run on, that's
share that information on the private pages, but it would be through the official page.
Yeah.
But as elected officials, we have an obligation.
Just an idea of how to reach more people. I know we try to make things as accessible as possible and as transparent as possible, but that's always the feedback, right? That we hear is, I didn't know about it. I didn't know this. I didn't know that. And so I think it's incumbent upon us to do everything we possibly can to make it as accessible as possible.
And it's,
so one of the things I would suggest is not live streaming the entire thing, but come up to a synopsis of the meeting
and live stream that.
Meeting and live stream that. The board decided on this, and this evening, as opposed to people can go back and look at recordings. They have a big burning desire to watch the whole thing.
They can't watch it. They can,
voice channel.
We don't post the video. We only post the audio.
Right. You can listen.
You can go to Community Voice Channel.
Well, that's true.
Yep. And so that there's that access. But I think a synopsis might be an idea to have, and you guys agree on what was 3 big points.
Yeah.
4 big points.
Can we also get some guidelines as far as what is appropriate? I mean, is it appropriate to speak to certain, like I know you, like I believe you and Bob spoke with the community, the senior center, right? Are we allowed to reach out to the PTA?
Absolutely.
Okay, we can do that. So I think maybe we need to look at those active groups in town where they already have a voice and see if we can,
And so what we found with the PTA is beginning of the year, in September, is much larger turnout. And as it gets to budget time, it gets to spring, the sports and everything, the parents get involved with, the numbers dwindle on who's actually going to the PTA. And that was the last 2 years. Next year. So if there's an audience, we can go, but if there's a live stream that we can send, or in Amanda's idea,
I think it's going to take a lot of different avenues.
Yeah.
I love the live stream. I think we're in on that. But I mean, if there are other avenues that we can use.
I wasn't really involved with it because really was Emily was doing, you know.
There was a community voice channel presentation.
Yes,
they went
that's
to the
right.
Senior Center and did an in-person presentation.
The signs were put up for it was for the second or the third one.
Big signs.
Yeah.
I think both.
Yes.
And they changed the presentation of the budget itself a lot, changing the order around and changing some of the wording.
Next, the feedback I got was that people wanted some more of a graphic type of executive summary up front instead of all the words. It was what the feedback I got when I was at the polls. And so that would kind of fit in with the synopsis that Pam was saying, because people are busy. They don't want to sit through this whole thing. But if they do know that we're going to be giving a synopsis at the end, you know, of key points we talked about and key things in the budget, then that might get some attention.
They want to know how much taxes.
That's all they want.
Right.
That's all much.
Every home, that's a cost. We have $100,000 we're talking about now, the grant match. That means we'll be able to apply and get some matches. That's new, and I think that's of interest. But we also got $100,000 last year that came from the state that was a surprise 105.
I think it was 105,000.
They came as
It
a
was
surprise
unanticipated.
Right.
revenue with no strings attached. So that is a beautiful offset to the $100,000 that we're holding aside. And we talk about how something that Charlie likes so much, and the breaking up of the things we're saving up for these next items. And you know, you talk in those terms, and it sounds truthfully that we're being respectful of everybody's dollar, we're being thoughtful, and we're trying to be flexible.
Well, I think saving is a power word for that too. Yeah.
I think there are guidelines that we're required to follow as far as what we can or can't say, pro or con, especially being things that we can't really say that, oh yeah, I believe that the fire truck's important, so we need to keep that in the budget. We can't go into a line item thing. At the same time, I think it's appropriate that we convey to the public that, you know, we are doing manageable fiscal responsibilities as a board, and give these examples that we're using, not to a lot of detail, but to be saying things like, this is the steps that we're taking. Because the reality is, and a lot of people don't realize this, is in the individual budgets, they're already doing that. They're already saying, gee, I've got a 5-year plan that I'm going to be doing. And as part of that 5-year plan, I want to start, I might need to do this, 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 and this in order to get to that 5-year plan. So they put it to the budget this year, and then we cut it out, of course. So they put it in next year, and maybe they get it next year. And then they put it in the year after that, and they've already got it started, but we cut it out. So now it puts in jeopardy what they were planning on doing. And what might have taken 5 years now takes 10 years to get enough monies, except that at the end of the year, all that money's turned back to the general fund and they're starting over. A lot of people don't realize that that's happening. And that's what's been killing the various budgets within all the departments.
And the reverse of that, or in addition, as people want to know, what did you cut out? Yeah. But they also want to know what's the extra that you put in.
They're going to benefit me.
And how much more.
And they typically focus on the mill rate.
Yeah.
That was brought up last night too. But
Which will go down when we do.
Right, which I'm saying.
That was my thought too. I was surprised that was even brought up the way it was. But yeah,
No, they focus on the mill rate and they don't understand, like you were saying, that you can pay more even though the mill rate goes down because the value of your property went up. Because at the end of the day, the town needs this town, which includes Board of Education and Board of Selectmen, need a certain amount of money to do the business of the town. And that's what we're really trying to get to. And sometimes that means the mill rate changes and you pay more or less, and it's independent. It can be independent of the mill rate's direction. Yeah.
Because we don't have other revenues. Right?
Yeah.
So I can say one thing, there'll be no recession here. Not in the state. No recession.
Okay, you heard it here first.
Come out.
But, you know, and again, part of it also comes down to the pattern that we've gotten into in Bolton where those 500 people come out and the rest of them delegate to that. So that's another thing that we have to. That's where they have to, I don't know, that's kind of key to the whole thing too, because communicate, that's great. And it will give some people a better understanding, but then how do you transform that to action? Because we really don't, we have a way that's sort of, fallen into.
One of the hard questions that always ask right there. So what's going to get cut? Well, we don't know until we meet. So if we don't pass this, then what happens? We try and describe that it's unknown. The Board of Finance decides how much, and then we can come back.
We still don't know what's cut. It's just an amount that's cut.
Right.
It's not a particular item or issue.
That's the frustration that I've heard from people.
Oh,
yeah.
They say, they're like, I wish I knew what I was actually voting for.
Would it be reasonable for us to be able to find out what ended up getting cut last year?
Yes.
Sure.
Or maybe the year before that?
Yeah.
Or, if anybody can remember even going back 3 years, saying that this was postponed or this was cut and we couldn't do this, and we couldn't do that.
It would be valuable to show, demonstrate, see like this is the result of.
Right, but the way our process works is it's just an amount.
Yeah.
And then when the budget finally passes, the Board of Ed has an allocation and they've got to figure out where they're gonna make their concessions. And the Board of
And they don't have to explain to anybody, they just do it.
They just do it.
Right.
They have a board, and we some have a board. They're elected representative government.
That's my point.
Government, and that's our job.
Yeah.
But there's like a disconnect there.
Where?
The public
That
doesn't
I
see,
feel.
the public doesn't see.
They've like elected us to be their representative, but then when we put forth what we think is the best for them, they don't like it and say no.
And they don't participate
Without knowing
in the process.
It's like no by
That's
default.
that's my big.
Because we're supposed to read their minds, which is, something that we can't do.
Now, you take the test the rings, you do the best you can by going after the
Yeah.
different groups and talking to them,
Well,
hoping that it spreads.
I like the idea though of if we could find out here's what we cut money-wise last couple of years, and here's what the Board of Selectmen had to do in response, and here's what the Board of Education had to do in response. We can't tell you what will happen specifically this year, but these are examples of what happened when we did cut budgets. And we can't tell you this year, if we do cut it, what will be, will happen in advance, because Board of Finance does not have line item, veto. We only can do an amount, and the way the charter is, it has to be less than, what you guys didn't like.
But we can say that the foreign language program got cut.
Correct.
And that was, after that's a concrete one. We have that,
Because we,
And you guys have a social service position too, right?
We didn't fill. We didn't fill the program coordinator position.
But that's still.
It was something you were planning to fill, and so I think.
and there's a service that wasn't provided.
A list of the services that aren't provided, whether they were cut or not filled or whatever, just to show the difference.
all you need is one well-crafted sentence.
Yeah, because all this is what we could not do because of the budget cut for, last year. And Board of Education has its bullet items, Board of Selectmen has its bullet items. And this is what happens when you cut it. So now this will give them an idea to look at and see if any of these things are near and dear to them, then they have more to think about.
Yeah, and I don't know how it is with staffing on the Board of Ed side. I do know that they're still continue to look for some stuff, but we are not staff rich on the town side. There's no people or positions to cut.
But we have to be careful because we're not about to say go out and vote yes on the budget.
Right.
Yep.
We can say what's in the budget.
Right.
We can say what's in the budget and we can say what happened, with the previous ones, because it's just a matter of record. And it's not saying one way or the other. It's just think about it.
Why they're back again?
Right.
But this is the first time in a long time that we're going to be able to say, and it's unfortunate because we're like, someone's going to get cut. And I think they just thought we were, crying wolf, but it finally happened last year. So I think there's the messaging could actually resonate a little bit with people.
Yeah.
With parents.
Yes.
And that suddenly, because something isn't filled.
Yeah.
Don't have to make this people cut.
Well, because all of this stuff, it's sort of like a dynamic equilibrium, because like what we talk about, it's constantly little shuffles here and there to make it all, work.
Well, I will say that when it comes time to writing up whatever has to be seen for the public, I am perfectly happy to sit with Jill and whoever else and try to draw up some of the language.
I have the feeling that it's going,
As part of that, what we can or can't say.
So I think that's where
What's the penalty? Do I lose my position if I say the wrong thing? Does the town have to pay a fine or something?
So there could, I think.
Or do we get sued by somebody who's not happy?
With regard to individuals, it's probably, but don't do that. It may be a requirement to go to class.
It may be a good thing to check with water. How far can we change?
Oh.
Is it the Board of Finance
or
the Board of Ed?
It's everybody.
Everybody.
Oh, it's everybody.
I think if we can make a group effort.
Well, it has to be a group effort because it's got to be Board of, Finance partnership with our partners in, Board of Selectmen and in Board of Education.
I mean, we just have to promote people to come out and vote because we know when we get the numbers, it happens.
Yeah, you have to have around 1,000 people to vote to offset the 500 or so. There's 400 to 500 who usually say no.
Right, which is what we do, and you don't say, vote yes.
Right, exactly.
Well, no, it's like I said before, it's like I just would like more people to come out so that you understand what is really the will of our constituents. Because right now it's really a challenge because the public is not at our meeting. We haven't heard any comments, directly from folks. I go out and try to get them and it's like, we're too busy.
But last year's hearing was good.
Yeah.
Last year, external forces, the price of gasoline, the price of diesel. People were panicking. We're going to watch people, they're going to be very upset about the price of their electricity.
Right.
But if those things, there's a pressure of that, they're like, I can't take any more.
Yeah. Well, it has nothing to do with us, but we are taking money out of their pocket in addition to what the increased electricity rate, has taken out of their pocket. And the thing that we do with this, when we take that money, it comes out of their daily income, even though we're taxing their property. It's not miraculous.
They're indeed going to be taking more money out of their pocket. That's the fact of the matter that they have to be conscious of. What we're doing is managing fiscally our response.
No, I'm just trying to make the point that we talk about real estate taxes, but it doesn't somehow come out of a bank account that's your property value. It comes out of your daily income, and some people are property rich and cash poor. So it's, like I said, it just gets back to the balancing act and trying to, how do we do something that makes this town work for everybody? And it usually means that everybody doesn't get everything they want. Yeah. It's just a fact of life. It's stuff I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but some of the stuff, I like to ask about it and have the discussion just so that we all consciously at it and talk about it. And the other thing is just so that if folks actually listen to the recording, they hear us asking the questions and they hear us having the discussion about it. So it's part of the public record. So just to let you know, I ask stuff like this. Sometimes I already know the answers, but I'm asking it just so it gets out there in the record.
People are listening because at the last two board of selectmen, we've had people come and tell us it's time for us to go to the town hall.
With cards.
So people are listening.
Yeah. No, and it's good because, let's just work on getting this, I want to be just very clear about it. It's like, I want open discussion, but I want us to all try to get onto a message that we all can support and that we all say the same thing. But I don't want people to sell short, on their beliefs, and I don't want it to be like party line or anything like that. I look at this as a team, and that we need to come up with the right plan of action, and we need to, be tight as a group as what is the message, that we're saying. Yes. Well, no, and I'm specifically saying this too, because I know there's a Republican majority, and I don't want, our Democrats here to be concerned, feel like they're not being heard. So that's one thing I want to make clear. I don't look at this as like politics, making a decision. It's less looking at what's bringing our viewpoints to the table and doing the right thing.
No, Amanda and I don't have problems speaking up.
Good. No, I didn't think you did, but I just want to because I know you two are like in the, the minority here, and I don't want that to mean that you don't say what's on your mind and that you're, it's no different than anybody else here, because I don't have anybody telling me what the party line is.
I haven't seen a ton of divisive politics around this table since I've been listening or been here. So no,
I just and I just want to bring it up. And again, I'm just asking.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
He hogs all those airspace in here, and we never get a chance to put a word in.
The fact that most of your votes are unanimous, speaks to the fact that you're all working very well together for the common good.
Very complimentary.
I've been privy to some Board of Finance meetings where some of the participants haven't been as cordial to some of the other participants in the board. So I certainly appreciate what's going on myself.
Yeah, cool.
Positive for them.
And we also can laugh and have a good time, because this is a lot of hard work, and so we are entitled to have a good time as much as we can. So I'm going to ask for a motion to adjourn, because it's been a good discussion and we need to get out of here. It's 9 o'clock, because this last part went very quick because we were having a good discussion, but it's also late.
Second.
All right, we're done.
Yeah, you actually don't need